mostly that passive investing is an LP, limited partners. And you're basically just taking the money and investing it and then watching it grow.
Welcome to the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about creating more time freedom through passive real estate investing. Passive investing in real estate challenges conventional investment wisdom. We are passionate about learning and sharing resources with others who are ready to transform their investing mindset. Quick disclaimer as always, I am not a CPA, I am not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer, ADP. I'm glad you're here. Now let's dig in. All right, welcome back, Freedom Point Podcast listeners. Thank you again for jumping into another episode of the Freedom Point. We're so glad you're here with us again today. I have an amazing guest with me, Kent Kiess. Kent, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Appreciate it. Excited about this.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for spending some time with me today. Really appreciate that. To give it a little bit of a background on Kent to my listening audience, Kent, believe this, has spent 30 plus years in construction. He also authored the acclaimed Beyond the Tool Belt book, which I'm excited to learn a little bit more about here today. In 2006, he began investing in single-family rentals and multifamily apartments across diverse markets, building not just wealth, but also communities. So Kent, really appreciate again you being on the show with us today. Would love for you to kind of give my listening audience a little bit more of your background, kind of your journey, maybe what you're focused on today, et cetera.
Awesome. Well, it's been a roundabout, and I end up getting back to the same place I started from. So I'm originally from northwest corner of Ohio, which I'm always proud to say. Go Buckeyes! And I was born and raised with a hammer in my hand. My dad was a construction person. He actually had a concrete business, so we've been entrepreneurs pretty much all of our lives. And then he'd wake me up when I was 10 years old and say, "Hey, let's go to work." And, I loved it. I thought it was great. I got to meet all kinds of people, and, I got the ethic of working hard and what it took to work hard, and got to a point where, you have your peaks and valleys in construction. And unfortunately, the business didn't go where it was supposed to. And I was the oldest, so I was the one, I felt that I needed to continue with the construction, with the concrete company. And I didn't do a very good job with it. And I was young. I was driving a truck when I was 17 years old. And I took over the business because, and I knew the work ethic. I knew how to work hard, but I didn't know the business component of it. And that's what I want to bring to everybody. Let them try to understand that, yeah, you might have a fantastic work ethic and you might work your tail off every day. But man, if you can't figure out how to make that money work for you, it's going to be a long life for you. So that's what I try to do. And then, so we end up selling the business dirt cheap. Dad went back into the factory to work, which just broke my heart. And then I ended up being a concrete and brick mason for a long time, and didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. Moved out to Southern California, and I had a job, and I was working as a mason. And 2 weeks later, they laid me off, and here I am in the middle of out in California with nothing. Luckily, I had an aunt that I got to hang out with for a little bit, but decided I wanted to go to school, became a teacher and a coach. And I taught special ed for many years. And then, because at the time I was very disappointed with entrepreneurship. I thought that wasn't the way to do it, and everybody was mean to those people. and I wanted a job that I wanted that scarcity job that I knew that I could count on, that I was going to get money every day for it. So yeah, so I did that, and became a teacher, and then did that for like 10 years. And all of a sudden, administrator came up to me and goes, "Hey, would you want to teach a construction class?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that'd be awesome." I've always said young people need to work with their hands. Not everybody wants to work go to college and go that route. So I created a curriculum and did that for 15 years. And we were one of the best ones in Southern California. And we won state championships building houses. And my kid and the students knew how to plumb and do electrical and frame and masonry and general contracting stuff. So it was great. I retired 2 years ago from my W-2 and now I'm loving life.
That's great. Well, you've got Kent, you've got quite a diverse background in terms of kind of your upbringing, from Northwest Ohio and kind of the entrepreneur side of the business, small business ownership. Obviously, the transition to Southern California and teaching, right? I mean, very different, occupations there. So, really, my genesis of my question is, what inspired you to make that transition from construction and teaching to real estate investing?
And that's a great question. And I was sitting on a beach with my brother, and he says, "Hey, have you read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "You got to read it." And that's what got me. Now, at the time, I was 49 years old when I read that book, and at that time, I knew nothing about passive income. I had flipped houses. My wife and I, we did that because that's how we found houses we lived in. And I never knew there was such an acronym for BRRRR, nowadays. And flipping houses was actually a job. I just thought that's how you got your, you created your wealth through there, and you just stepped up house to house. And so, long story short, to answer your question, I needed to do at 49. They came into me and they kind of want to change my schedule, and I'm like, I've done so much work, I've worked my butt off my entire life, and I still don't have control. I still don't have control of what I want to do. And I was at a point where I pretty much topped at the education component. I didn't want to be an administrator. I just wanted to help people, and I felt that I couldn't do that where I was at. So I put a plan together, and after reading the book and reading a couple other ones, I decided when I was 55, that was it. I was done with educating, but I needed something else to kind of help me if I create that passive income. And I felt with my construction background, real estate was definitely where I could definitely go to and not have to I still had to have the education, the part of that side of it, but just knowing, I can go and, look at a multifamily building and know right off the bat what it's going to take, if it's even worth doing. Nowadays I can, we kind of help people with, they'll show, send me pictures and, "Hey, what do you think about this one?" "Nope, stay away, walk away. It's in a bad area. The water area is not good." Just by looking at things. So that was a plus for me. That's why I kind of created that.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, just for my listening audience that may not know what the term BRRRR means, just wanted to quickly highlight that before we move on. So the BRRRR strategy is something that I actually encourage younger people who have a lot more energy than people like maybe Kent and I do to deploy. And the BRRRR strategy is essentially you buy something that needs to be renovated. That's obviously the first R in the BRRRR. So buy, renovate, refinance, and repeat. I might be missing an R in there, but that's kind of the general terminology for what a BRRRR strategy is. I'm actually a really big proponent of it. I'm encouraging my teenage sons to do that when they first move out of the house, is to implement that type of a strategy as they look to build up their own, real estate portfolio, especially on the single family home side, to best prep and prepare themselves for a day, maybe in the future, where they start to level up and scale up into, small multifamilies, or maybe even look into other asset classes, et cetera. So I really appreciate highlighting that. So I just have a kind of a question from an investing perspective on your own personal side. Is there any specific markets or asset classes or operators, et cetera, that you're typically focused on now when it comes to deploying your own capital into real estate?
It's since, 5-6 years ago, it's changed. It kind of, and this, the market changes, the asset component changes, the returns change, the cash on cash change. But we're at a point right now where we're looking, we feel that the valley, I think the valley's kind of at where it needs to be. It's going to start going up here pretty soon. When, of course, I don't have that crystal ball, but it's going to. But we still like the Phoenix area. That's where we're pretty much in. We've got boots in the ground there. Obviously, the Ohio area, Columbus, Cincinnati. Those are places that we do look at. So we're really focused, and we've kind of brought down a little bit our units. We feel that the research that we've done recently, a lot of mom and pops are looking to sell because their actually daughter or son doesn't want anything to do with that. And it is, it's a lot of work, and so they're looking to sell. So we're looking more towards that side of it, and trying to, because that's how the numbers work. Is with the interest rates right now, it's really tough to make, because we syndicate most of our deals, and that's just really tough to do.
Yeah, absolutely. There's obviously a pretty big spread, even today, as it relates to, what buyers and sellers think that the right price would be, for the property. So definitely see, some changes occurring with some distressed, properties hitting the market, which usually doesn't necessarily mean it's a distressed property. It's more of a distressed operator. Usually the distress is on the financial side as opposed to the operations side. So interesting to see what's going to happen, obviously, within the next, 3 to 6 months. Even by the time this episode releases, we'll be close to the June Federal Reserve decision in terms of where the interest rates are going to be. I don't have a crystal ball here, but I would suspect that they'll probably stay, right around where they're at right now until the Federal Reserve hits their kind of, 2%, target rate. But again, no crystal balls here. I don't have the magic 8 ball. I lost that a number of years ago. So we'll see what happens there. Well, I would like to ask you a couple of just kind of anecdotal questions on some fairly simple terms that people oftentimes throw around. And I would like you to kind of define it in your own words, but what to you does financial independence mean?
Man, first of all, I didn't know what that was, until I started reading, educating myself and getting to that point. But to me, it's mostly that if I wake up in the morning and I mentioned to my wife, hey, let's go to France today. Okay, let's go. That's where not there yet. Going to be. We definitely will be. But that's the financial freedom component to that. That's how I would answer that one.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I think the definition of that would be different for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a real big fan of the term financial independence or even financial freedom. I think that those terms can be, quite misleading, and they can be defined differently by different people, right? So I typically like to talk more about time freedom, right? Because that's really what, people are after when they talk about time freedom and financial freedom, is they're really after, that time aspect of it, right? Because we can't create more time, right? I can always go out and create more money with the time that I'm willing to actively put in to pursue, that dollar, so to speak, but I can't create more time. So appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, again, just kind of a couple of terminology that gets thrown out there a lot, in our space, and that is passive investing. What is really meant at the end of the day by passive investing, and how is that different than active investing?
Mostly it's, you don't have to worry about, cleaning the toilets. You don't have to worry about the tenants paying, making that payment or going through and making sure you choose the right tenants. All of that is done, mostly that passive investing is an LP, limited partners. And you're basically just taking the money and investing it and then watching it grow. At least on our end, it grows. So that it's, I said before, I didn't even know what passive income was. And I probably was doing it. I was, because I said the Burr method, flipping houses and things like that. But it was just, for me, it was extra income to be able to go on vacation and save more money. But yeah, the passive component to that is basically, you don't have to really do anything. Just sit back and I love mailbox money, and
Yeah.
that's the key right there.
No, that's great. I appreciate that. And, passive investing, to me has a little bit of an active element to it, right? It's not just the fact that, you as an investor really need to do your own due diligence,
Yeah.
on the opportunity that you're investing into. And that due diligence does not necessarily just mean the due diligence on the pitch deck, right?
Mm.
It's really diving into the numbers and really, stress testing some of the financials, obviously doing vast due diligence on the operator, right? The jockey that's riding the horse, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So the other side of that is, every year these investments produce, annual K1s that you've got to go secure, send to your CPA who's doing your tax return. And then what happens in 3 to 5 years when these opportunities go full cycle, right? So you've got the decision then at that point to make to take cash off the table, or perhaps maybe do, a 1031 exchange, and then there's the monthly updates, right? I'm in 29 investments as a limited partner investor, and I can tell you right now, I'm not looking at those monthly updates. Okay. I just don't have the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I invested as an LP into these deals because I wanted to be a passive investor. I did not want to be active. I did not want to have to deal, with the tenants, the trash, the toilets, the termites, swinging hammers on weekends. So I invested passively in these deals, but there's still a little bit of an active element to these opportunities, especially, if you're going to really dive in on a monthly basis and actually read, the monthly updates that the sponsor puts out based upon, how maybe the renovations are going or where the financials are at, et cetera. How do you feel about that?
Totally. I mean, that's what, I know we haven't mentioned it yet, but that's what the book pretty much kind of helps you follow that component. And I can't stress anymore, like you're saying, the due diligence. Just because you're going to be an LP doesn't mean you just hand over your money. I mean, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want that investor. I want to make sure that you at least done some of your homework and you understand the part of, that part of it. So totally, the due diligence is a huge factor. As a passive investor, don't count on the person that is that you're reaching out to make sure that the deal is solid, and just your homework.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's interesting because when you think about, investing into Wall Street, that really is a passive investment, right? I'm not really doing anything other than clicking the buy button and how many shares I want to purchase on that particular day. Beyond that, the only other active side of it is to hit refresh on my browser to see if the stock price went up, went down, where the valuation is at. But the one thing that I really personally like about passive investing in real estate is the fact that I almost feel like I've got some insider information. It almost feels a little bit illegal to me sometimes, where I can pick up the phone and I can have a direct conversation with the lead sponsor that's managing the value add business plan, right? And I'm also a limited partner owner. I own private equity shares in this company that owns this specific property that's undergoing a value add business plan, for example, right? How do you feel about that, Kent?
That is awesome that you just mentioned that, because my wife and I were talking about that several months ago, and I was talking about, trying to help investors understand what we do. And she made the exact same comment about, well, it's almost where, and you don't want to say this, but it's almost like you're an inside trader for real estate. That's pretty much what you do. And obviously everyone thinks that's a bad thing, but it really isn't. I mean, people in the stock market think it is, but it's knowing that information that's going to help you understand how that investment's going to work. So, I mean, you hit it, no pun intended, but the nail on the head right there, man.
That's coming from 30 years in the construction business. So good work there, Kent. Since you brought up the book, I want to highlight your book a little bit here. So my question for you is, with respect to your book, which is called Beyond the Tool Belt, what central message do you hope readers take away?
Time, health, and wealth. Those are the three things that the book's about. And I know that's from my own experience. And what I feel is in order to get to that part, to have that generational wealth, to get to that freedom that we talked about a little bit ago, those three things have to go together. You can't skip the time. You can't skip health and have time, and it doesn't work. And I know you know that too. You have to have those three, and you really got to understand. And you talked about earlier, the time. The time is that was the one thing, and in the book I kind of narrow it down, and at one time I was at a point I thought I was making really good money. Even in Southern California, teachers make good money in Southern California, in California. And at one time, if you added all the time that we put in after and before school, and being away on the weekends and going to these places, I was making $16 an hour. That's not good enough for me. I'm not making 16. That's that's below minimum wage now. So so it's the time. And once you figure that out, a great book, The One Thing, is fantastic to help with that. But figure that out, and then your health. I lost 35, 40 pounds at one time. I thought I was actually in decent shape, but I didn't realize I was that had that much extra weight on me. And that's another plus too, because it just makes you feel good. You feel so much better, and you're ready to conquer the world. And then the wealth shows up. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. Those are three great pillars. So I know that you got invested or started investing in real estate back in 2006. Has your investment strategy changed at all over the course of the last, I guess we're coming on almost 2 decades since you started investing, in real estate? Have your own personal goals changed, your risk profile, et cetera?
Completely. Because at that 2006 time, we had already, purchased a couple of homes, and when I call flip, my wife and I, we lived in them for at least 2 years, because as you and I know, that if you do it 24 months, then you don't have the capital gains, a certain amount of that when you go to sell it. So that was just me, thinking that and talking to my CPA, which is another good thing to have. And I read an article I don't know, back then it's probably the paper, and they said that vacation homes were a good purchase. So we went up and purchased a vacation home up in the mountains, and so that was, it wasn't nothing major. I didn't know any of the passive income component. Like I said, I was just doing it because I felt I could make money doing that, a little extra money on the side that would help us with vacations and get a little extra things on the side. But nothing really changed, like I said, until I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and when I was 49, and realized, why am I not doing this? I know how to do all that. I've been doing this. I just haven't went full go with it. And the question you asked about why did you pick real estate? Well, to me it was a no-brainer, because it's just, everything is right there, and people tell me, like, wow, you know how to do this and that, wow, you could really help me with this, and I can, and I'm more than welcome to do that. So
yeah, that's great. So my next question for you is related to housing affordability and community development, right? So I know you're an advocate, of course, for both. You regularly, I'm assuming, talk to investors about kind of your philosophies there. So what role do you think real estate investors should play in addressing housing affordability?
Oh man, that's a whole nother episode, man. I think it's great that more, for our housing is being built. It's my philosophy behind that is I don't think the American dream of having a house is really neat. I'd hate to push that, because it's just the pricing right now is just, it's insane to me, especially out here. But like you were saying earlier, a duplex, a triplex, purchasing something like that, and helping yourself, rent out, you live in one side and everyone else lives on the other side, to help you pay for that monthly payment. I think is probably the best thing to do. But a lot of housing is being built, a lot of multifamily is being built, which is great, and mostly it's outside of those mecca areas. You know, your subdivisions and places like that, which I think is what your question is on. But the building component of it is I mean, it's crazy. It's gonna keep going, and that's why, you know, the book is more towards blue collar workers, because I mean, man, if you're young right now, go get a job in blue collar, man. It is you're. I mean, you're nuts if you don't.
I brought my teenage boys to an event this past fall here where I live here in Minnesota, which had to do specifically with entering into the trades. Okay. And when I say the trades, you know, there's lots of different options there. Right. And it was all put on by small business owners that all had businesses in their specific, unique, you know, niche or trade that they were in. And when I would talk to these business owners on how much kids are making in college, I was blown away. And furthermore, how much they could make after just going to school for 2 years and kind of getting beyond that apprentice, you know, status into more of a journeyman. It was incredible to me, you know, how much you can make, you know, getting into a trade school and really, you know, launching a career in some elements of the trade. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up to me. I do want to pivot and ask one kind of couple of final questions here before we wrap up. And that is, what advice would you be giving to somebody that has never invested in real estate before? Where might you suggest that they start to get educated and learn more about the strategy?
What changed, I say this to everybody, is we came into understanding whole life insurance and how to create our own bank to do that. And that, to me, that's the first thing I would do as a young person, is make sure you reach out to the right people, because there are many different things out there. Now, I'm not trying to sell it or anything. That's just, I feel that was the one thing that's really pushed us or helped us go on to create that next level. So once again, that's a whole nother podcast itself. But then after I got that, then I would buy a duplex or a triplex and use that money to purchase it.
All right. Sounds good. Well, maybe we'll have you on as a guest again down the road here. Appreciate that, Kent. So what's maybe next for you, either personally or professionally, you know, as we kind of get towards the middle part of 2024?
We talked about it earlier. We're looking at some smaller units, Phoenix, Columbus, Cincinnati areas. Trying to find more value for our investors, and then actually the book. I'm in the process of writing a course for it, so people will have an option to be able to, after they read the book, go ahead and do that. So we can always keep, you know, creating that education. That's what I want to do. My value is I want to help people get to that next level, and definitely blue collar workers, because they deserve it.
Yeah, that makes sense. What would be maybe one or two different ways that our listening audience can reach out to you to learn more about what you're up to?
They can definitely reach out to casey-investments.com. And then they can also reach out to me and call me, 562-209-3159. And that's the best way. And my webpage will have all my Calendly information on there. And please reach out. I have no problem. I want to talk to you. So
that's great. Well, thank you for sharing that. We'll put that contact information in the show notes for the episode. Again, Kent, really appreciate you being on the show with me today.
Thank you so much. And I did forget, Beyond the Tool Belt. Make sure you reach out to that, and you can get that through Amazon too. So thank you so much, and appreciate it, Jeremy, for everything you do. And this is awesome. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to have you on today. And Freedom Point podcast listeners, thank you again for jumping into another episode of the Freedom Point. We look forward to having you join us on the next episode.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the Freedom Point podcast, powered by Starting Point Capital. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the Freedom Point podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. If you're interested in connecting, you can find contact information at startingpointcapital.com.